And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon. Tonight we're joined by my guest, Randy. Randy, thanks for coming on here and talking to me.
Oh, thank you for having me come on.
Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself?
Oh, I'm 73 years old. Pretty much been a outdoor person most of my life. I've worked outside all my whole life. As a kid, you always played outside, but I also worked outside with my father. We had a business, and me and my brother was kind of brought into it at a tender young age, and we've done it. I retired, I don't know, a couple 3 years ago when my health kind of got bad, and like I said, basically I've lived where I've lived in the general area where I've lived for the whole 73 years. I moved to Michigan a couple 3 years ago for a little bit, and that was about all I done. Then I come back because, like I said, I like Ohio.
They say Ohio's for lovers.
Yeah,
At least that's what I hear.
I don't know if it is or not, but I sure like. Well, and the thing of it is, my family and I live within. I could throw a rock at my brother. I could throw a rock at my nephew. Throw a rock at my great nephew. Throw a rock at my niece. We're all close here. And this is my father built a house years ago, and we've all just kind of in the same general area.
A lot of my family are that way too. I'm actually not too far from my parents' house, which is next door to my grandparents' house, and I had aunts and uncles and everything else all somewhat in the same area, so I kind of understand. I moved away, but I've come back, and we're like a few miles from each other, so it's not as far as what it used to be.
Yeah, well, like I said, my dad had a bunch of brothers. My mom had a bunch of brothers and sisters, and of course, my dad had a lot of sisters, and most of my dad's family were farmers. Most of my mom's family were farmers, and my dad farmed us out to them a lot to help them. And like I said, that's what we done a lot. That's why I said we was sort of kind of, I guess, brought up in all outside, been outside work all the time.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. Well, if you would like to tell the audience about what you experienced, I will turn it over to you and we'll go from there.
Okay. Like I said, my experience started, like I said, it was I'm not real sure anymore. It was in either the late 80s, early 90s. I'd have been anywhere from 35 to 40 years old at that time. And I took and it started out that I've hunted my uncle. As I said, my uncles were farmers, but my uncle had a farm that we all hunted on, or I always hunted on. And I've hunted on this farm as a 500-acre farm. I worked on it. I hunted on it from 1966. I've hunted there. Hunted there up until I don't know a year or 2 years ago. My health got bad and I couldn't hunt anymore. So anyhow, the hunt started out that in where we hunt at, it's supposed to be shotgun only. Well, me and my brother weren't always honest about that. Sometimes we took rifles with us. And the first day of gun season, deer season here was on a Monday. Well, that Monday, me and my brother took our my stepson with us, and we dropped him off at his spot where he likes to hunt. Then we drove one down into the big woods, which is about 350 or about 250 acres of woods, and big area hunting area. And we all got on our stands, and my brother always hunts. I hunted in this one area that was like a small patch of woods and a large patch of woods. There was a little bit of an opening in between them. I always hunted in there, but I just kind of stepped back. Always had a little stump I sat on. I just kind of stepped back into the woods that I could see out front because there was a cornfield out in front of me. My brother was about 75 yards, 60 yards maybe down farther on down the way. And he did the same thing. He just kind of set back into the woods, but you can still see out. Well, we hunted that day and didn't see anything, which was very unusual for where we were hunted at. So we went and picked up my stepson and went up and got him, and he got in the vehicle and he said, "Did you guys notice how quiet the woods were today?" We never thought nothing about it till he said it. And we realized that we didn't hear a squirrel. We didn't see birds. There was nothing. And that's unusual for the woods. And the woods were real quiet. It was like there wasn't any wind blowing. It was just like the woods were dead. So we took him, going to bed next day, which would have been a Tuesday. He didn't go hunting with us. He went to his real dad's to hunt that day. And me and my brother went down to hunt to get on our stands. And of course, we always got in there before daylight. But I was sitting there and kind of sitting back on my stump there. And I, of course, watching out into the tore up cornfield. And my brother shot. So I jumped up, stepped out because I thought, well, if he was shooting at a deer, there might be a deer run my way. So I was jumped out so I could see down toward him. But what I saw was you can only thing I could ever call it, which I always called it a werewolf, because that's exactly what it looked like. This thing was running at my brother full bore, like running right out of him. My brother was shooting at it. My brother shot it 5 times right dead in the chest. Didn't stop it, didn't even slow it down, didn't even phase it. I jumped up, shot 1 time, hit it in the right shoulder. After that, I put another shell in it, and the gun I had, and I shot it and hit it right in the side of the temple, blew its eyes out, both of its eyes. You couldn't see it, just went in its head. And when it fell forwards, it was running such force, it's had its right hand up to strike at him, or its right paw. When it struck at him, it scratched him, ripped his excuse me, ripped his chest open on his left side, tore through Carhartt coat, insulated Carhartt coat, pair of insulated coveralls that he had on, plus a sweatshirt, a flannel shirt, what I always called a long john shirt, and a t-shirt, and ripped through all that layers of stuff and ripped him open, ripped his left shoulder open, right where your shoulder bolt or hooks to your part of your chest. Of course, by then I run down there, and this thing's laying kind of face down right at his feet. And I asked him, I said, "Well, what's going on? What happened?" I said, "What is this thing?" So I was more concerned about him being hurt because he was bleeding. Well, we took off up out of there, and I got the vehicle and got him, took him up to my uncle's house, and my aunt called it in as a dog attack, and she said a dog had attacked my brother. And we have, I don't know, a friend of mine that I graduated high school with. He was like one of the head game wardens in the area, and he was hunting on the next farm over. Well, he heard it on his radio, and he come in. Well, Rick's telling them what it was, and they're thinking Rick's crazy. That there's a werewolf down there that would attack him. That it wasn't a dog bite or wasn't a dog attacking him, it was a werewolf. Well, nobody paid any attention to that. Well, they have to call at the time because we shot what they said was the dog. They had to call the sheriff, and the other Department of Natural Resources guys came in. There was two sheriffs rolled in two different cars. Department of Natural Resources guy come in, two of them, plus the boy that was my friend from high school. So there was three game warden guys there, and of course they come in a squad and loaded him up in the squad and took him. And we got down there, and they wanted to see this thing, so we got in the car and drove back down there, or the vehicle. They followed us down, and nobody had. I was the only one that had a truck, and everybody else had, like, the Department of Natural Resources guy had like the Jeep station wagons. The guy that was the other guy he rode down with them. All three of the game warden guys rode down there. Well, the sheriffs, they got in their vehicle with me and rode down because they were coming in cars. We all got down in there, and of course none of them could figure out what it was. I told them, I said, "That's a werewolf." I said, "I don't care what any of you people say, that's a werewolf." Well, they were all kind of leery of it. And I went over, got it, and flipped it over on its back. And this thing, I didn't. It was black as black could be. If it would have been night, you couldn't have seen it. That's how dark it was. And anyhow, it's got humongous fangs on it. I mean, I looked in it, and it was worse than any wolf that you would have ever seen. It was, the fangs were probably 3 or 4 inches long, maybe longer. It had a white spot on its chest, little white, I don't know, just like a little star-looking thing on its chest. But you can see where my brother had shot it in the chest. All 5 shots were within, 5 inches diameter. So he hit it in the chest, all 5 shots, and it didn't do anything to it till I shot it in the head. And we took and messed around with it. And this thing it didn't have paws. I said it had like what I always called raccoon hands. If you ever seen a raccoon's front paws, how they look, well, these were like they were like twice or 3 times as big as my hand, because I put my hand up against it just for them to look at it. Well, it was huge, and then plus it had claws that were probably 3 inches on the end of that. Now the legs look like dog legs. The bottom, the legs that it had stood up on look like dog legs. And I don't know how it ran, on all 4 legs, because the front legs were like way longer than the back legs. And it was, I don't know, it was probably 7 or 8 foot tall. It had a little short tail on it, not very long, but like maybe 1.5 foot, 2 foot long tail. Like I said, it just looked like a German Shepherd, great big German Shepherd dog. Well, I can tell the thing that when I never ever seen this side. I've watched werewolf movies my whole life, off and on. The only thing that ever came close to what I thought this thing looked like was when the Van Helsing movie came out, the werewolves in Van Helsing. That thing looked just like them. It looked exactly like, well, when Van Helsing turned into werewolf, he looked just exactly like that. Ears on top of its head, long snout. Couldn't see what his eyes were, because, like I said, the eyes were going where I shot in the temple, the side of the head. And it was kind of a weird looking thing. I went and well, I'll tell you my brother's side of this. What we're doing. My brother had to go to the hospital naturally. Well, he said that he kept telling him that it wasn't a dog bite or it wasn't a dog attack. It was a werewolf that attacked him. It was a werewolf, and they could not. They kept saying, "Well, it's a dog thing." And my brother said that they kept saying. He said out in the hallway, you could hear him saying, "Well, there's a crazy guy back in there talking." And my brother said, of course, there was a sheriff and a Department of Natural Resources guy sitting in there with him. He looked at them guys. He said, "I hope that you guys can keep that crazy guy out of here." Well, I didn't find out till later, but Rick was the one that was being told that was a crazy guy. It wasn't. It wasn't somebody else. They thought Rick was crazy because he said it was a werewolf. So anyhow, Rick said that the day that this all happened, that morning, or that about 10 o'clock in the morning, by the way, he was sitting on his stump. He said he could see these. There was three of them coming across the field, and he said he just kind of put his head down, just where he could look underneath his hat to see him. He said he walked funny. He said he thought it was the neighbors had Doberman pinchers and German Shepherd dogs, and he thought that's what it was. And he said that when it got down there closer to him, he said the one kind of made a noise. And he said there was two of them, and he said there was a bigger one and a little smaller one, plus this great big one. And he said the two took off down towards the river, which would have been to Rick's right. The one, Rick said, they've been walking across on all fours all the way. Then all of a sudden, this thing just stood up on its hind legs. And Rick said it smiled at him. Said you could see it smiling at him. And he said the thing just started coming towards him. That's when he started shooting. Then after that, that's when he shot it 5 times. I shot it in the head. And that took to the end of it, I guess. And anyway, I took the guys, game warden, and all them guys down there, and all of them had 2 of them had the one that I went to school with. He had a real nice 35 millimeter camera, and the other cops had like the city cop or the sheriffs had regular like cameras, had like Instamatic type cameras. The one that you could, I mean, it wasn't Instamatic. I'll say, I'm sorry about that. Not an Instamatic camera, but like just a regular everyday that you could buy at the store camera. And they was all taking pictures. They had me hold its head up. They had me put my hand on like I said, on that thing's paw. Took a picture of how much bigger the hand was than mine. How much his paw was bigger than mine. And they took pictures after pictures after pictures. Well, in the meantime, radio's going off for everybody. Next thing I know, there's 2 or 3 more game warden guys come in another Jeep, and another guy comes in, or 2 more sheriffs come in. Of course, they all got cameras, and they're still taking pictures. Well, I have no idea why they did this, but they decided to. I told him I could take my truck and we could throw it in the back of the truck. Oh, this thing, like I said, probably 6, 7, 8 foot tall. This thing probably weighs 600 pounds or 700 pounds real easy. It was beefed up in the chest. It was built like sort of like a bodybuilder, and the way it was upper body was. Now the lower body was just like a dog, from about the waist down, and it was a male. You could see that it was a male, and like I said, the legs on it were very big. The calves and the thighs, they were huge as far as the size of them. I took and told him, I said, well, let's load this up in the truck. I'll take it up. You guys can go take it with you. Well, no, they weren't going to do that. So it was getting late in the evening. I told my friend, and before I forget this, I told my friend and the sheriff, them guys, to let me. I said, if you're going to take in pictures, I said, can I get some of those pictures that you've taken it at? My best friend, like I said, from school, he said, oh yeah, that's no problem. I'll get you some. I'll make sure you get some. Well, I still have not got nothing as of today. I haven't gotten anything, you know. And I see this friend a lot of times at the store I would go to, which is just a little corner store. And I've asked him a many a time about it. And his only reply is, I don't know what you're talking about. We never took any pictures. I don't know what you're talking about. There ain't no pictures or nothing like that. Well, I got this, went to the sheriff's department, which I knew a lot of guys I knew a lot of the sheriff guys that were there. And so anyhow, I asked them. None of them had any pictures. They didn't know what I was talking about. I said, well, there should be a report. So I wanted to see the report. There's no report of it at all. There's no report. Even though there was supposedly my brother was bitten by a dog, there's no report of anything being even told about it. That he was bitten by a dog. So anyhow, I said, well, let's take us load in the truck. No, they didn't want to. They brought a young boy in down there, a younger guy from the Department of Natural Resources, and said, well, he's going to stay here and watch it tonight. We'll bring somebody down tomorrow with a big truck to load it in the truck. Okay, that's not a big deal, and whatever you guys say. So we all left that guy there. It was, like I said, it's getting late in the evening, and it gets dark in wintertime. 5:30, 6 o'clock, it was dark. And like I said, took them back up to their vehicles. I took my vehicle and went to uh, the hospital to check up on my brother. And I said, went in there, and of course they wouldn't let him go. I had to sit and wait for him for several hours. I had to sit and wait on him. So they finally let him turn him loose, and he's kind of patched up. And he said the worst part of it was, he said they took like a wire brush and was cleaning the cut out where it was hurt, where he was hurt. So that really hurt it bad. So anyhow, we come out there, and he said, let's go down there. I want to see this thing. He said, let's go get us a couple cameras. Let's go get us a camera, take some pictures of this thing. I said, no, it'll be there tomorrow, because they said they were going to be down there. I said, we'll get up early and go down there tomorrow. So we went to bed, done our, thing. And of course, we had to tell our mother and his wife, that he got attacked by a dog, so that, we went crazy. We didn't tell them till years later that it was a werewolf or Dogman, whatever you want to call it. I've always called it a werewolf, but we didn't tell them till years later that it was a werewolf. So anyhow, we get up bright and early the next morning, go down there. When we pull into my uncle's driveway, there's a Jeep sitting there that's from the Department of Natural Resources. And this young boy is freaking clear out, because the thing of that body of that thing is missing. It's gone. So sheriff comes, more Department of Natural Resources, all these guys roll in, and they're all, they're pointing at me and my brother, thinking that we took this thing. So, well, we didn't do anything. We didn't, but we were home. But they argued with us about us stealing that body. Want to know where it was? I told them, we didn't do anything. Brother told them we didn't do anything. So anyhow, we come to find out that this boy he's freaking clear out, because this body's gone. It's cleared. It's gone. And he says the boy says, well, I was down there last night, And he said, I start the vehicle up, turn my headlights on to see if it was laying there. And he said about 2 o'clock, he started hearing this noise. He said, sounded like dogs carrying on, howling and barking, carrying on. He said it was real far away and then it was real close. He said this kept getting closer and closer. He said then it quit. So he said he took and he said about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock that morning, he fell asleep in the car. He said when he woke up, said the sun was up at 7:30. He said he seen that the body was gone. So he said he freaked clear out. He couldn't figure out what was going on. But when we went out and looked at the Jeep that he had been in, you could see there was prints on every door where something had tried to open the door handle up on that door, but they just didn't know how, or the doors were locked, whichever. Because he never did say if he locked the doors or whatever, which, is a good thing if he did, because them things would have ripped him out of the car. Because my guess would be they came back after the body. The other two did, that they came back after the body to look to get the body. And after he was the only one left, I'd say they were going to kill him, was what I figured, that they were going to take him. So, but that's like kind of my story, I guess. Not a whole lot. If there's somebody want to know something, ask it. And if the best I can, I'll try to remember how it went. But like I said, it's been 30 years ago, at least, since all this happened. So I might have left some details out, but I hope I didn't.
I'm just wondering if they were walking around his vehicle, if they really wanted to get him, why they couldn't just smash through the window.
Well, I've also wondered that myself. But why would they pull on the door handle,
Mm-hmm.
or why they would have their hand? And and you could see the vehicle was dirty, but you could see on the side of the windows that they actually put their paws on the window, or their hand on the window, and you could see the fingers, and the claws, and you could see it just on the back window. You could see it on the side glass, on the side window that he was sitting in the driver's seat sleeping. He said you could see it, and then you could see where they had scratched up the door, trying to get a hold of the door handle to pull, to open the door handle up, and there were scratches on the back, uh, on the back uh, tailgate. Um, there was uh, uh, scratches on the back tailgate where they was trying to figure out how to open up the back tailgate. So, and like I said, it was just a Jeep station wagon. I don't know. I think they had Cherokees or something like that at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really remember all that. That's the specifics of that.
Yeah. When the one came charging at your brother, the one that you guys shot, where did the other ones run off to? They just keep going the direction they were going, or?
Yep, my brother said they all three stopped, but he said that the two of them went to the right, down to the right of him, running towards what at the time it would have been the river would have been close to there, and I mean it was still 1,000 yards from it, but it was close. It was close to the. It's close to the. It was close to the. That's what he said. It was close, like it was running towards what he thought was the river, but he said he kind of lost track of them. He said he just seen them run to the right, and he said this one, and my brother said the big one made some kind of a noise. Said don't know if it was a growl or a whimper or what, but that's when the two took off. Said they took off at a dead run, and he said that the one stood up, and he said that's the one that he focused on. Said he didn't know what was going on. He said till it looked at him. That when it stood up, is when it freaked him out. He said, and my brother had said, the whole time they were coming across, that he just had his gun laying across his lap. Said he wasn't going, he didn't hadn't raised the gun up, had raised the gun up like he was going to use it to shoot or whatever. He uh, said that the thing stood up on its hind legs. He said then it's had his full looking at it, and he said he didn't even pick the gun up then. He said, but it smiled at him or growled at him or showed its teeth. He said it looked like it was smiling at me. And he said it took off, just started running, tried at me. He said that's why I grabbed my gun up. He said I shot as fast as I could shoot that rifle, and said I hit it, and like I said, he hit it in the chest. Hit it, and you can see where he hit it in the chest. 5 shots. So.
Have you guys ever heard of anyone else in the area of ever seen anything similar to that? I know it's been 30 something years ago.
I can I'll tell you, I've hunted down there, like I said, since 1966. I never ever saw anything. I never was afraid down there. And if my stepson hadn't said anything about that Monday, everything being so quiet, we wouldn't even give a thought about that. But we noticed that Tuesday morning that we were down there, it was the same way. It was real quiet. I mean, everything. Normally you see squirrels, you see birds, something's moving around all the time. Deer. There was nothing like that them 2 days. And it's just years later, it happened to me, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago again. Me and my great nephew went down there to hunt. He went and hunted with me for a long, long time. We were sitting in the tree stand, and that's another thing. I never hunted on the ground ever again after that. Now I got up in a tree, made me a tree stand, and I built a tree stand and stayed in it from then on. But across the field, you can see a big open field, and then it goes into another cornfield. Well, the farmer, the next field over, had we were watching, and there's a road that runs down through there. Well, I seen this thing, that big black thing, coming up through there, and I got my binoculars with glass and looking at it, and I swear it was one of them. But that's been, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. But I'm sure it was the same thing. But it didn't come around our way. It just went right on up toward where the houses was and this chicken barn stuff was. So I don't know if that was the same one. That was a different one. Well, let me say it was a different one, but out of the same 3 that we saw. I don't really remember anymore. I mean, I wouldn't know. It was just black, is all it was.
You mentioned by a river, and that really makes me start to think some more about some things. Like, there is a lot of reports of sightings usually around water systems, so usually like rivers and everything. It seems to be a more common theme as people are seeing something not too far from a water source. So that kind of makes sense that if you weren't too far from a river, the theory that I've heard from other people that have researched more into these things is they think they follow the streams and the rivers as a way of migrating. And I don't know if these things migrate. I don't know even what they are, but
well,
it makes sense.
I truly think you're right there, because I've never seen them. I've never seen one of them before. I never seen, other than 4 or 5 years ago, I seen what I thought was one with my binoculars, but and you couldn't tell. I know it wasn't a deer, and it was too big, I thought, to be a coyote, because there's a lot of coyotes down here. There's coyotes in there, really thick coyotes down in there. But I agree with you that I think the rivers and the streams are what they travel around on. And I often wonder sometimes if these were just off, it was off by a couple weeks, that we wouldn't even seen them. That they've been through there off and on for 20 years. And it was just a certain time of the year that happened to be at the same time we were all there together. Because I can't imagine now, not seeing these things if they're traveling back and forth through that area. I just can't imagine. Now, you asked me before if anybody ever said anything about any other ones. Several miles down the road, probably a good 10 miles down the road, the sheriff seen what he thought was a werewolf. He called it a Dogman, but that's only been like 2 or 3 years ago that this happened. It was a big thing. It was on Facebook that this guy had told this story, and of course I didn't know the sheriff, so I never bothered about talking to him about it or asking him about it. Most time people, and like I told you before, I've told this story to a few people. Very few. The few that I ever told the story to looked at me like I was crazy. Actually, I had one of my friends I told this story to, and for years and years and years, he kind of quit coming around me, and it was like he thought I was a bad omen or something. I don't know what was going on, but I don't know. I've quit telling the story, and I told the story a few times after it happened, but I didn't tell it any more than just a couple times after it happened. But I didn't figure, especially after the game warden friend I had told me that nothing like that happened. He didn't know what I was talking about. And the sheriff's department telling me the same thing. That kind of looked like a cover up to me really bad.
It sounds like something that they were told that they couldn't talk about, which seems to run typical.
Yeah. Yep.
I've always wondered, and this is just me being maybe conspiracy brained over here, but there's been a lot of reports and a lot of instances that happen on no trespassing lands, like government owned lands, or certain areas like private properties that all say no trespassing. So you think about it as like, why are they not wanting people out there? Do they know these things could be around there? Or is the fact that there's not people out there that these things go there? Could be one or the other, but it seems to be a more common thing that I've noticed lately is a lot of these instances happen in areas where most people aren't usually at.
Well, I can tell you a story about that a little bit. The farm that would have been where me and my brother were facing towards the east, there was a farm that 2 farms over to the west. The government came in and took land away from them and told them that they couldn't farm it, couldn't do anything with it, and all on the pretense that it was some sort of a Indian burial mounds. Well, there's no, as many times as these fields have been plowed up and turned under, if there was any kind of burial mound, that somebody would have seen it. But there was nothing. It's just flat ground with woods, just wooded ground. And it always made me think that because I made a mistake at one time. I had a vehicle that broke down, and I cut across there because I was going to go down to my uncle's, and I cut across one of their fields. And within seconds after I got on that field, there was a guy there in a vehicle telling me I wasn't supposed to be on state property. I said, well, all I'm doing is just walking across there. So I go down to my uncle's. He said, you need to go back down some other way to your uncle's house. Oh, okay. And the guy sitting there and got a badge on and a pistol, and him and another guy telling me I got to get out and get off that property. So
I know here in Indiana, in my local area, there's a spot that people have went out there, and I've went out there too filming here recently, but they've made it to where the areas that I was in, which I didn't realize this until after the fact, because someone that was with me asked, why is there randomly purple marks on trees? I was like, I don't know. Well, apparently the purple marking means no trespassing, which maybe I'm naive and didn't know that, but apparently it's like a universal thing. And nowadays is anything that you see purple on painted on trees means no trespassing. But there was recent sightings of things out there, and now all that land is no trespassing. I was like, well, that's awful convenient.
Well, talking about that, and I didn't know that either. And there was no sign that said no trespassing, but there was two purple things on the fence post that when I first walked down in there, and all it was, my uncle had farmed this farm for 20 years, and all of a sudden, state comes in, buys a piece of property and buys the farm and put up these purple, like I said, on these fence posts, these purple dots. I didn't know. I'm like you. I never realized that's what that was for. And it's been, gee, many criminy, 15, 18 years ago when I got that guy, them guys from the state throwed me off that property.
Yeah, it was
So,
literally the week, couple days before Christmas. I was out filming, and we happened to notice all these purple random markings painted on trees, and we did a quick Google search, and apparently purple is like the warning of private property, no trespassing. And so I was like, well, I guess we're not supposed to be where we're at.
like I said, I never heard of such a thing at all till you just said that. I never realized that's what that was. I'm gonna have to look that up myself now.
I've been noticed ever since then. I've started noticing it more. We were driving down the road the other day, and I was noticing a lot more random spots of purple being painted. And I was like, I've never saw that before, never even thought about it. But apparently, maybe it's just because I never thought about it until someone mentioned it, and then now I notice it.
Wow. Well, I mean, I'm amazed. I'm amazed since you said some of that because, like I said, some of the stuff you're mentioning, Timmy, makes me think back. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I think
It's
if these
crazy
things
stuff.
are out there, someone has to know about it because there's just too many eyewitnesses. I've seen something, you've seen something, other people have seen something, and they took photos in your instance, and now they conveniently don't have it. So there's something going on to where they don't want people to know about it, and I don't understand what it could be other than these things have a higher form of intelligence that they don't want people to know about, or there's some other type of supernatural element to them that they don't want people to know about. It could go either way. It's one of those things that doesn't make any sense, but people see what they see. I want to know what it is because I want to know what I saw.
Well, that's like me. I would really like if the government knows something about this or whatever. I sure would like to know what they know about them, even if it's just to say, yeah, they're these things are real. Whether they say the government. I've seen in some of these things that they say these are made by the government. They're sponsored by the government. I mean, yeah, government built these things, and I was also told one time before. I talked to a guy one time, and he said these things you cannot kill them, shooting them in the chest. He said it's like their chest is like I don't know how you want to say it. It's their chest is thick. It's almost like a bulletproof vest. It'll go into them, but it won't go into them. Won't go clear through the chest cavity to kill them. And like I said, my brother had five spots in about 5 inches around, and it didn't even phase it. I mean, it didn't phase it at all.
What was he using to shoot? Like what kind of a caliber gun? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, it was a 358 Winchester rifle. I shot it with a 308 Remington rifle. That's what I hit it with in the head and shoulder. He hit it all 5 times in the chest. And this gun was my dad bought the gun to bear hunt with. That's what everybody told him that was a good caliber to bear hunt with. So, maybe everybody lied, but like I said, that's been, my brother. He quit hunting. He hunted one more year, And after hunting one more year, he never hunted again. He's never been down to the woods again since this happened. And he won't. He's got a little scar on his left shoulder, but all it is, you almost can't see it anymore. You can see it in the summertime because he goes out of his shirt a lot, but you can see it looks just like a little white speck. And but this thing, when he cut him, you thought he had stabbed him in the heart, as much blood is pouring out of it. But this thing, like I said, it had 2 or 3 inch claws on it. That's the claws. That wasn't just the fingers. That was the claws on it, And it looked just like a raccoon's hand. It looked just like a raccoon's paw, only huge. Like I said, I put my hand to it and it was 2 or 3 times larger than my hand. And that's just how much bigger it was. And this thing was muscly. I don't know. It kind of reminds you like a bodybuilder. And, it had big shoulders. Shoulders were real wide on it. And like I said, its ears were right on top of its head. The snout on it was probably looked like go to rent Van Helsing movie, not the new one, the old one. And when he turns into a werewolf, that's exactly what this thing looked like. When he's fighting that Dracula in that movie, that's exactly what it looks like. And like I said, when I was watching the movie at the movie theater, when that werewolf come on, I about jumped out of my chair. It freaked me clear out because I thought, how could they have something that looked like that? All these other werewolf movies I ever seen, nothing even come close. This looked like exactly like it. It looked exact. The head part of it. I don't know. It freaked me clear out. I couldn't. I actually had to leave before the movie was finished because my heart was beating so bad. I thought, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And my girlfriend at the time come out with me, and she said, "What's going on? What's the matter?" I said, "I just need to get out." I said, "I'm going to the restroom. I'll be back in a little while. You go back there and finish watching the movie." And all I went into the restroom, got some water, splashed it on my face, got my face washed off, wiped my face off, went out, and I sat back down out in the spot where you pay for to go into the movies, just sit there on a bench till the movie was over, and they come out. And they said, "Oh, you missed a really good movie. You missed." Okay, well, the boys wanted to rent this. My 2 stepsons wanted to rent this movie and watch it, so we watched it. And like I said, I did watch it finally to the end. That 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 werewolf thing, whatever, it could pass. That's exactly what it looked like. Black like that, just black. It just freaked me clear out. I'm I get nervous thinking about that, because that's just how it was.
You mentioned
But
hearing stuff about how the government's talked about supposedly engineering some of these things, but if you, even like with this Van Helsing thing, originally in Dracula, that was wrote in the 1800s, and in Europe for hundreds of years and everything, there's been stories of werewolves. And
yes,
yes. That's when people talk about the engineering stuff, I was like, I don't necessarily know about that, just because there's been reports of these things for hundreds of years before we're ever doing any sort of engineering on any type of thing. So I think werewolf
I agree
legends and
with you
everything
to
is the
that to an
same.
extent, but the government will weaponize anything.
Right.
You know that as well as I do. The government is bad. If they could get something that would, that they could get that would fight their way for them, they would do that. That's just how it would be. And I'm not saying that. What my point was about that is that kind of like that is that if they had access to a werewolf, say that was 50 years old, 70 years old, 25 years old, and they could make it better
Mm-hmm.
and make it more, lethal for their own benefits. You know, so I kind of think, they would do that.
Yeah,
I truly think they would do that.
I agree with that. I don't think if they this is my stance on a lot of this stuff when it comes to like cryptids to paranormal, even to UFOs. I think if the government can't control it, they just don't acknowledge it because they don't want people to know that they are not always in control.
Yeah, I truly believe that too. I believe that wholeheartedly.
So I think there's certain things that happen that maybe they don't fully understand themselves. So the best thing that they do is they keep it quiet because they don't want the news to get out there that they're not in control.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit more about this story too. What I'm thinking about it. I kind of got off track. I don't know, for weeks after all this happened, weeks and weeks and weeks, there was a black SUV pull in my brother's driveway and just sit there. I watched this thing, and every time I'd get in my vehicle, drive down our hill to go sit, they'd start up, take off down the road fast as they could. They'd done that for weeks and weeks and weeks. Finally, I thought, well, I'm gonna find out what's going on. So I went another way. I went around and drove through our yard, went down a neighbor's driveway, pulled in front of the place. Of course, in the meantime, I told my brother to watch for me when I got down there to come down and help me. I got down there, jumped out, and I said, "What are you guys wanting?" I said, "Oh, we're lost." I said, "You can't be lost for weeks and weeks at a time." So I've seen this. I said, "You haven't seen us here." I said, "I've seen the same vehicle." So I've seen the same vehicle sitting here for weeks now. I said, "Oh, I don't know." So he started to go around my truck. And I was so mad. I was so mad. I pulled a gun on these guys. I said, if either one of you guys move, I'm going to shoot you. The guy put his hands up. I said, I need to see some ID. Guy took his ID out and handed it to him. I said, no, you throw your IDs out on the other side, and my brother will pick it up. Well, they didn't realize my brother was sitting there with a shotgun. And when they seen that my brother had a shotgun on him, they was real nervous. So they threw some cards out there that they had. I said, that cards don't tell me that. Well, that's what, we don't have. I said, let's see your driver's license. Well, the guy said, here, I'll show you my ID. Throwed stuff out to them, did. And it was for some Instaway, or it's, what is it? Can't think of what it was called now. Inscan Entertainment. That's what it was called. I said, what are you guys doing here? Well, we're looking for space. We're looking for places to shoot for movies. I said, well, you need to move on down the way. We got no place here you're going to need. I said, I don't want you to come back. And I never did see him again. But about 4 weeks after this, my brother and I went back in the field. He owns a little farm, got 15 or 18 acres. So we go back and set up targets and shoot guns. Well, we go back there, and now we're getting in close into the springtime, and we're shooting our guns. And I happen to look down the fence row here. Of course, there's brush and trees in the fence row, and it looked like there's a guy sitting there in camouflage clothing. So I told Rick, I said, let's go over and see what's going on. So we go over where this guy's at. When we get close to him, he stands up. I said, what are you doing over in here? And he told Rick, he said, I'm turkey hunting. I said, it's too early to be turkey hunting, buddy. Oh, yeah. I was just looking to see what's going on. Well, he sat there with a shotgun. He had a shotgun. So I said, well, you need to move on down the road. Well, he's left and started walking down the railroad tracks. And I turned around and said something to my brother. When I looked back around, this guy's gone. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he dodged off in into the other one of the other bushes or what. But that was kind of a weird thing that happened after that. Like they was watching my brother and I. And I don't know if that's what it was, or if I was just paranoid from everything that happened.
Do you think that maybe they were looking for the other two?
I think that's later on. That's what I kind of think they were doing, because I was told one time that these things, if they get your scent, they'll follow you. And a lot of times that's what happened to people. They have these close encounters, and a few years later they end up missing. They're missing. They're gone. And like I said, it's just I don't know. There's so much stuff goes on. So, you talk about, and you was talking about flying saucers and aliens and all that a little while ago. I got when I was a kid, I seen a flying saucer. I'll tell you my flying saucer story, and then I'll let you go or whatever. I was 15 years old. My buddy was 16. We were driving down the road, and out to the right where I was sitting in your passenger seat, it's just me and him. And I looked out through there and I said, "Look at them lights coming across there." So he stopped. We're on a 4-lane highway, and there's no other cars around. We can't see another car. We kind of pull offside there, and we're looking. Didn't get clear off the road. I could get the door open on the vehicle. We're watching this thing. It comes right over. This thing comes right over top of us, and I realize it's a flying saucer when it gets over top of us. I opened the door up. He opened the door up. And next thing I remember, 15 minutes later, I'm laying on my back with my feet inside the car. He's the same way. His feet's inside, but he's laying with the door open on the ground. I don't know what happened. That was the weirdest thing, but that's the only. I don't know what. I don't even remember nothing else about it. And I remember I woke up. He woke up. I said, "Let's get out of here." So we took off to town because he's getting gas for his mom's car. And like I said, it was 15 minutes later, because he had a clock on the car, because they used to have clocks on these cars. His mom and dad had a real nice new car, and that's what this and that's the crazy thing I can remember.
I've heard other people talk about stuff like that, similar to where they've been driving, that things get over top of them, and the next thing they know, it's been like 15, 20, 30 minutes later, and they don't remember anything, or they don't know how time has passed, but they don't have any recollection of the lost time.
Well, that's like about that. I don't remember. I don't know if we were knocked out for the 15. Had to be, I guess. But I don't remember. All I done was open the door up, and when I stuck my head out the door to look at, because it was right over top of us. When I opened the door up to look up at it, that's all I remember is looking up, and I seen these lights, and that was it. Didn't remember nothing until I woke up, laying there flat on my back.
Do you happen to know about how high up from where you guys were it was in the
air?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, probably 30 feet, 40 feet.
Okay, not very high off the ground.
Oh no, it was right on top of us.
Okay.
I thought it was going to land on us, and when I was watching it come out across there, you could watch it. It just kept going down. These lights just kept going. They started up real high. They just kept going down, lower, 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 until they got right over top of the car. And like I said, I opened the door up, looked up at it, and boom. Like I said, don't remember nothing after that till we got in the car, till we woke up, and I got back in the car, and I told my buddy, I said, did you see did you see that? He said, yeah, but he said, what happened? I said, I have no clue what happened. I don't know. I don't want to know. No. I said, let's get out of here.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I've talked to a few people that claim they've had memory regression, I think it's called, where they try and get hypnotized and they remember what happened. I was like, if that ever happened to me, I don't think I'd ever want to remember.
I don't want to know. I wouldn't do that. I've seen that. People talk about that, but I don't want to know what happened. I don't want to know, and maybe nothing. Maybe they just, scanned us or whatever. And maybe that's why they didn't do anything with us, because they just scanned us and that's it,
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I just wouldn't. I'm too skeptical enough as it is, and I'm not a very trustworthy person. So even the hypnotist, I don't necessarily believe in hypnotism, but if it ever did happen, I'd be afraid to, like, unintentionally or maybe even intentionally, depending on the person, would be implanting false memories. And I don't want that either.
I've had my aunt, my mother, my ex-mother-in-law, they all believed in, what is it, where they read your fortunes.
Oh yeah.
And they always wanted me to go. And at the time, it took my ex-wife for her to go. And I told him, I said, that's just craziness. It's just crazy. I said, I don't believe that at all. I said, in the same way with being a hypnotist. I think a hypnotist can put a lot of memories in your head if you're there and they know what they're doing, I guess.
Yeah.
And I or don't know what they're doing. Either way, I guess. So
That's kind of how I feel about it too. I don't want to push any buttons. I don't want to push my limits or open up doorways to things that I don't need to know about. So.
Well, I don't want to know what happened. And the craziest part of this, what I just told you about the flying saucer, nobody but me and my buddy knew it. We never told anybody about what happened. As far as I know, he never told, because he always said he never told anybody.
Right.
And I just seen him, I don't know, a month ago, and talked to him a little bit. And I said, you ever, because every time I think about it, I ask him something about it. He said, I don't want to remember it. I don't want to talk about it. He said, I don't care. I don't care what happened. He said, I don't want to know nothing about it. I said, okay. So he won't even talk about it anymore. So.
Seems to be a common trend when people have those sort of experiences. I know other people too that have witnessed things and they want nothing to do with it. So I get it.
Well, it was just so off the wall. I mean, I don't know. It was just so crazy that it happened, And then the crazy part, like I said, 17, 18 years later, I seen that werewolf thing. People aren't supposed to have that done. People just, I don't know. It's just, you shouldn't have, weird things like that shouldn't happen to a lot of people.
Right.
So,
Well, we've been going on for a little over an hour, so we can probably wrap this one up.
Okay.
And I just want to say, do you have anything else you would like to say to the audience before we do?
Well, the only thing I'll tell you is, anybody, you go to the woods, go with a weapon of some sort, not a knife, not a hatchet, a weapon, and I mean a weapon. It may not save you, but at least it'll give you a chance to survive. And me and my brother was just lucky that we survived that, and or that he did anyhow, because I don't think that thing even knew I was there. But you never know, you never know. But like I said, I appreciate you letting me come on and tell my story. And like I said, I hope hope everybody learned a little bit of something from it. Like I said, if nobody believes it, that's okay. If you do, great. But if you don't, that's okay too. So, but thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, Randy, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Nice to talk to somebody too.
Well, you have a good night.
Okay. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tells, remember to send an email to tinfoiltellspodcast@gmail.com, or you can also go to tinfoiltells.com and go to the contact section. Just make sure to reach out and get a hold of me, and we will get something scheduled for a future episode. You can also find Tinfoil Tells on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for Tinfoil Tells Podcast. You can reach out to me that way too. Remember to share the show around. Word of mouth is the best way to help the show grow. And just remember, truth comes at cost. Are you willing to pay the price?